Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 24th, 2025 special council meeting. The agenda is before you, council. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have public participation next. Should anyone need to speak at the microphone or wish to speak at the microphone, please identify yourself and your street. And you have 4 minutes. Everybody is welcome. Okay, let's move along then. In our agenda, what we have before us is a report for action. The province has made it mandatory that local governments align their official community plans and their land use bylaws with their housing needs, and this is focusing on capacity, the class of the housing, and a link to the land use bylaw to a qualifier to meet the needs of the future. I was wondering if we could have our planner, Miss Tara, to come to the microphone, please. She's got a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Tonight I'm here to present an overview of the proposed official community plan and land use amendment bylaws number 712 and 713. And as Mayor said, the intention of these amendments is to bring the district into compliance with new provincial housing requirements in the Local Government Act. Before I get into the main presentation, I just want to note that there are some minor corrections required in the proposed official community plan amendment bylaw number 712 and in the proposed land use amendment bylaw 713. There's a table in section 6.1 of the OCP, that's page 21 of the agenda package, that provides a summary of how the OCP meets the Local Government Act classes of housing need. And there is a numbering error within the first section of the table, where the table references section 1.6, 1.61, 1.62, and 1.63. It should be referencing sections 1.5, 1.51, 1.52, 1.53. And then in the land use amendment bylaw, there are sections 51.3b, that's the ag zone, and section 52.3b, that's the ag 1 zone. This is pages 44 and 45 of the agenda package. They currently say that lots under 0.8 hectares may have either one secondary suite or one detached suite. This wording was included in error, and the intent of the bylaw, as shown in the redlined versions of the bylaw presented on November 5th and in the agenda tonight on attachment 4, is that ALR lots less than 0.8 hectares may only have one secondary suite per lot, and the 0.8 hectares or greater, they may have one secondary suite within the principal dwelling and one detached secondary suite or carriage house. And then in the definition section, there was a definition of border, and that was intended to be removed with the new definition of boarding that was added, but it was inadvertently retained during drafting. So my apologies. Planning is recommending that these minor changes be addressed prior to council giving second reading to the bylaws. And at the end of this presentation, I'll present an amended recommendation to reflect these changes. So to continue on, this slide illustrates an overview of the work that the district has done since early 2024 to respond to provincial housing legislation requirements, all with tight deadlines that the district has met. Council has reviewed small-scale multi-unit housing, that's the SHMU, and has considered the provincial policy manual and site standards, and they did this by the June 30th, 2024 deadline. And under the proactive planning component of the provincial legislation, an interim housing needs report was prepared and received by council in November last year. And now the legislation requires that we go into the OCP and the land use bylaw to make sure that it reflects what's in the district's housing needs report. So tonight, council will be considering these amendments, keeping us on track to meet the final provincial deadline. There are additional provincial deadlines in the future. However, municipalities have ample time to prepare for these, as the legislative framework has now sort of been established. And so the next deadline is the new housing needs report by the end of 2028. And then within 2 years of that housing needs report is another OCP update by the end of 2030. I'll just start by acknowledging that this is a very busy slide. However, I wanted to show what has been completed so far in this housing focus review and update over the past 5 months. So as part of the project introduction in June earlier this year, planning presented a housing capacity analysis and confirmed that the current OCP and zoning can accommodate the district's 20-year projected housing need, which is identified in the interim housing needs report. And this is the reason why no changes to density or land use designations are provincially required. At the end of June this year, council endorsed the housing focus project scope, the timeline, and the engagement plan. And phase 1 engagement ran from July 4th to early September. And this included a postcard mail out, online housing survey, and 3 community drop-in events. In October and November, draft housing policy options were presented to council, and later in the month for phase 2 community engagement, these housing policies were shared with the community and stakeholders for feedback. Following phase 2, amendments were prepared to both bylaws and presented in red line versions showing tracked changes to council on November 5th. And since having the legal review, the proposed bylaws before council tonight have not changed much, but there are a few additional minor changes in the proposed land use amendment bylaw, which I'll explain later in the presentation. And then as we progress through the next steps, there will be another opportunity for public engagement on these bylaws, and this will take place during the public hearing process, should council decide to give first and second reading. The OCP amendment bylaw before you tonight, it focuses on ensuring the housing related sections of the OCP comply with the new provincial requirements. So key updates include inserting the housing needs table, adding statements on 20-year residential capacity, updating statistics and projections, and updating housing policy to address all 7 classes of housing need, including the 5 that were previously not represented, which were rental, special needs, family, seniors, and shelters. A summary table has been added in Part 6 under Section 6.1 to show how the OCP responds to each of the provincial housing needs. A number of housekeeping amendments were also included, and these include updating housing policies 3.3.11 and 3.3.12 in Part 3, just to establish consistency with the ALC, updating mapping and legal descriptions to reflect the current parcel boundaries, so you'll see that in the agenda tonight, standardizing defined terms, such as using the word district consistently throughout the bylaw, and replacing outdated references to provincial statutes and regulations. In the provincial guide to the local government housing framework, I just wanted to note that housing experts have noted that historic zoning rules in many BC communities make it difficult to build the types of housing that people are needing, and um, and that families, seniors, and others are struggling to find suitable homes. And this is why one of the reasons why local governments are now being required to proactively plan and to align their land use bylaws with their OCPs and their housing needs report. So that's just sort of a background to one of the reasons why. And so for Machosen, the housing focus review and update of the land use bylaw was to add more allowable housing types in the form of carriage houses, communal seniors housing, and in the definitions section, we've added modular homes, which are now seen as an equivalent alternative to conventional site-built homes and manufactured homes. The size of accessory dwelling units is proposed to increase, and this was done to support more options and flexibility for different housing needs, as identified in the housing needs report and during the public engagement processes of the project. Amendments are also proposed to align housing regulations with the ALC, which, as presented earlier, for lots larger than 0.8 hectares, this would be one principal dwelling and one secondary suite and one detached accessory dwelling. Amendments also include updating definitions to modernize the language related to housing revisions, and these are done for the purpose of adding clarity, consistency, and efficiency with these changes that are being introduced. The changes are different from the red line version that Council saw on November 5th. To today is the definition of family has been updated to make it more clear, efficient, and focused more on use rather than the user. Boarding up to 4 persons is now included within the definition of family, the number of people within a family. And a clear definition for boarding has also been introduced to replace the old definition of boarder. And that is more to link the two definitions together. We have expanded on the definition of gross floor area to clarify what is and what is not to be included in the gross floor area. And from the last meeting, carriage houses was discussed more in terms of how they could be built on the upper floor on existing accessory buildings, and how the design could be affected by the size. And so we looked further into that and have proposed to limit or to regulate the floor area of a carriage house by using habitable floor area as opposed to gross floor area just for the unit itself. And this gives owners more design options for carriage house dwellings when meeting building code requirements without sacrificing living space. And this will be particularly helpful for those that are looking at building over top an existing accessory building, or even looking at legalizing existing suites. So for example, typically in gross floor area, stairways and hallways and stuff are included within the size of the dwelling. In this case, for a carriage house, you're going to be having stairs coming down through the accessory building or outside of this accessory building to the main floor. And so things like that we've removed from habitable floor area. So it just gives a little bit more design creativity for the actual living space on top of the garage or the accessory building. And there's just a few little examples. And should should these bylaws move forward and get adopted, the plan is to create an information bulletin to explain and visually and in plain language, you know, these are the regulations for carriage houses versus regulations for detached secondary suites, and you know, how does ALR land regulations come in to play? Because for ALR properties, we've added information notes into the bylaw to highlight that lands in the ALR are subject to the ALR use regulations, and they do have more specific requirements regarding floor area that are different from ours. So in terms of process and next steps, back in June, Council considered the Local Government Act requirements for early and ongoing consultation requirements through the endorsement of the community engagement strategy. And so this will form part of the council motions for you tonight. And this evening, we're recommending council give first and second reading as per the recommendation in the next slide. And the next step would be to schedule a public hearing following comments being received from the Agricultural Land Commission and the school district, both which have been referred to. And the ALC has told me that comments are forthcoming, hopefully by Wednesday. And then the goal is to have the OCP and land use bylaw amendments adopted prior to December 31st, 2025, provincial deadline. And this is a long it's 2 slides. So the first part of the recommendation is to correct the errors. And so we're asking that, you know, first reading be given to the bylaws and then make the amendments, and then that second reading be given after the amendments are made. And then the second half of the recommendation is to consider the waste management plan and the district's financial plan, and these are requirements of the Local Government Act. And that council consider the submissions made under the OCP amendment consultation process as outlined in that community engagement strategy as sufficient for early and ongoing consultation. Yeah, and as I noted, the ALC and the school district have received these amendments, and yeah, so I'll move back to the first slide. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, I suggest that we start with the first, that council consider first reading of the official community plan amendment bylaw. Go ahead.
I can make that motion, Mayor Little. Do you want me to read it?
Sure, just read it out for people at home.
Okay, I move that council gives first reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw 712, and that council amend the official community plan amendment bylaw 712 by correcting the numbering in the table section 6.1 background to reference sections 1.5, 1.5, 1.5.1, 1.5.2, 1.5.3 instead of sections 1.6, 1.6.1, 1.6.2 and 1.6.3, and that council gives second reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw 712 as amended.
Okay.
Okay. That's good.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to do first reading first with the.
Yeah.
Just let me get some clarification from our corporate officer.
Yep. So now, if we can get a seconder for that motion for bylaw 712,
okay,
and then call the question, and then move on to bylaw 713 with the remainder of the motion.
Okay. Okay. So that's moved by Councillor Shukin. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Donaldson.
Can I just get clear what, what we're looking at? So this is the amendment to the papers that we received?
So, yeah, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. In the OCP amendment bylaw, I made an error, and yeah, so we're correcting that error now before giving second reading.
So these are the numbering errors, sort of like housekeeping amendments. Okay, I'm gonna call the question on that. Everybody's clear about that? Yep. Okay, call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. We'll go on to the second reading.
Sure. Okay, and great. Move that council gives second reading to official community plan amendment bylaw 712 as amended. So moved.
This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Any comments, questions, concerns? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Great. Okay, so let's move on to the land amendment bylaw 713. Okay. Do you want to go ahead,
Oh,
Councillor
sure.
Shukin? Sure. Are we okay?
Yeah.
How are we doing, corporate officer Hanson?
So you are moving on to give first reading and then amending bylaw 713 and then giving second reading, and then you can move on to the remainder of the motion.
Okay, so this would be first reading for the land use amendment bylaw 713.
Okay, I move that council give first reading to land use amendment bylaw 713. So moved.
This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried? Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. That council amend land use bylaw number 713 by correcting the wording in sections 51.3b and 52.3b by replacing it with the following wording: on lots less than 0.8 hectares, 1.98 acres, one secondary suite is permitted per lot. On lots 0.8 hectares, 1.9 acres, or greater, one secondary suite within the principal dwelling and one detached accessory dwelling in the form of a detached secondary suite or carriage house is permitted per lot, and also deleting the definition of border. And I think we stop there.
That'll be fine. Any comments? That's moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments from Ms. Johnson? No? No? Okay. Anybody else have any comments or concerns? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mayor Little, I would move that council give second reading to land use amendment bylaw 713 as amended. So
moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll go to the next slide. So this is the solid waste management plan. Yep.
and this is in the package, I believe.
Yeah, through the chair, in the staff report, we looked at the amendments before council tonight, and they're not inconsistent with those plans. Okay, we'll put reasons in.
Okay, do you want to go ahead?
Question through you, Mayor Little, to the Deputy Corporate Officer. I think we can make this resolution all in one.
Yes, the remainder can go all in one motion.
Okay. Would you like to read out what's on the?
Yeah, I think we'll just go. Yeah.
Just exactly how she's got it written.
Yeah. Mayor Little, I would move that council considers the official community plan amendment bylaw 712 in conjunction with the district's financial plan and the CRD solid waste management plan, and that further considers information provided in the accompanying staff report, which gives reasons for concluding why the plan amendment is not inconsistent with those plans, and that council considers the submissions made under the official community plan amendment consultation process as outlined in the council-endorsed community engagement strategy for the 2025 housing updates to be appropriate for early and ongoing consultation for the purpose of Section 475 and 476 of the Local Government Act, and that council has referred the official community plan amendment to the Agricultural Land Commission and the School District 62 for comment, and further that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for official community plan amendment bylaw 712 and land use amendment bylaw 713 in accordance with Section 466 of the Local Government Act, following a referral response from the Agricultural Land Commission and School District 62. So moved.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments?
Yeah, I just wondered, I had a couple of questions about the work that was done, and is it now the time to get clarification? Yeah, I'm in favor of the motions and everything. I just thought it would be worthwhile getting a couple of things clear. So through the chair, thanks for adding the family definition. I think that clarifies the question I'd raised at the last meeting. But I was only curious, why 7 unrelated individuals? Not opposed to it, I'm just thought it'd be nice to...
Can you repeat that again?
The definition of family says that there will be not more than 7 unrelated individuals, and I just wonder where the number 7 came from.
Okay.
Through the chair, that's the number that was already existing in the bylaw. It just wasn't stated. So it had previously, the old definition of family talked about 3 people and it excluded borders. And so now that borders are included, that was 4 plus 3 is 7. So that's where it came from.
Thank you.
Do you have another question?
Yes, I had a different question, which I was struggling at the last meeting to find it, but I went back to the October 6th notes that we got from staff, and they referred to the idea, I guess a requirement, that we consider housing close to alternative transportation infrastructure. And that was what I was asking about when we were talking about communal seniors housing and the idea that they'd be on a transit line, in order that sort of if we're in the planning mode here, that we would plan for people being able to age in place. And then what would help that even better would be if the Abbeyfield House were located on a transit line. So I just wanted to bring it back to council to say that's where it was in the provincial regulations. We have a few points in the documents that talk about how we might meet that requirement, but we don't actually, it seems to me, say anywhere, well, we think development should occur close to transportation. So I just wanted to raise it so council knew that. I was in favor of that. I don't think others were necessarily, but just so you know, we had that kind of requirement from the province, and I wonder if anybody thought otherwise tonight.
Yeah, I think otherwise, because I think those regulations were more for an urban center where they've got fulsome and adequate transportation within the municipality, and we don't here. We've got very minimal transit options in Mid-Chosen, and the example that I used when you brought this up previously was there are probably many lots along Eels Road that may may be suitable for this type of housing, but yet the transit doesn't run up that road, and it's a very long road. And so I wouldn't be in favor of limiting those type of opportunities because they weren't on a transit line. And it's unfortunate that we don't have a more wholesome transit service with greater hours and greater number of buses, but we just don't. There's just that is concentrated to Saanich, Victoria, View Royal, and out to central Saanich, really.
I raised it again tonight because I was speaking to an acquaintance who said, oh gosh, what's going to happen to these people? They'll be living in a house with potentially using a car, but if they're not able to use a car, then what happens? And I mean, the answer is other people can drive, in the community of living at the residence. But if we were to plan, we would say, boy, unlike an urban center, we should put this on a transit line because we do have transit lines, and we can be sure of that. But if there's not the will of the council, I just thought I'd ask again this evening.
Now, that was a major push, if you remember it. I can't remember if it was Bill 47 where they wanted much of the density around transit cores, transit hubs. And we certainly don't have that in Metchosin. I really truly believe those statements were more for urban centers.
Right, I guess I'm thinking we did our active transportation plan. We're talking about the use of transit. Anyway, it's fine. I just wanted to raise it so that people are aware that we won't pick up that planning angle, although it would allow people to age in place for much longer than they would otherwise be able to do. The other question I had was, just to go back to it, we were listing off the various requirements: affordable housing, rental housing, special needs housing, seniors housing, family housing, shelters and housing for those experiencing or at risk of homelessness, and housing close to alternative transportation infrastructure. And did all of those come from the province to us, or did some of them come from our engagement with our residents here?
Through the chair, those are all the provincial classes of housing need in the Local Government Act, and that's what housing needs reports have to report on. So that's why the district's housing needs report has those same. They might have a little bit of different wording, like housing for people with disabilities as opposed to special needs, but it's the same classes of housing.
Thank you. That's just refreshing memories there. I just wanted to be sure of that when talking to people about how we came to those particular points. The other question I had was related to the advice from the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee. And they pointed out, interestingly, that, well, from their minutes, the majority of rentals on farmland are not to farm workers. And they provided some advice or ideas about how we could increase farm worker accommodations on agricultural land. None of them pertain here in terms of the rules. They're more a guidance and supporting it and advocating. But I wondered, they do support the ALR or the coming together of our rules with the Agricultural Land Commission. And I don't recall, does the Agricultural Land Commission then limit the size of the principal dwellings? Is that what we're going to pick up in the new year under the home plate discussions?
Through the chair, in the current regulations for the ALC, they do regulate the size of the principal dwelling. It's 500 square meters, and they do have a maximum size for the accessory dwellings, and municipalities are permitted to further restrict, but they can't allow more.
Thank you. That's all my questions. I appreciate giving those clarifications. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Johnson? No? Okay. Well, then the motion has been read out. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. So, Councillor Shukin.
I once again want to thank Ms. Johnson for all the great work to get us into this position where we can wrap this up by the end of the year. This has been a huge amount of work, and you made tonight's evening really easy because we've seen it before. You've answered all our questions. So thank you very much to Ms. Hanson as well, to CAO Mr. Payette as well. So. Yeah,
thank you. And we really should remember that this has been more than an 18-month process. Yeah. And remember when Bill 44, 45, and 47 came out, We were all very anxious about it, but this is recommendations. Well, actually, it's mandatory from the province, and you've handled that excellently. Well, thank you very much. Okay, with that, I think that's it, right? Okay, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Great. Thank you, everybody.